Let's listen to this man. He got some good news for you. Hey, man, I listen. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house.
Oh, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house today. Good afternoon. Dr. Ron here, your host of Dr. Ron, unfiltered, uncensored, and also leader of the Wellness Warriors. Welcome, everybody, and I do say that with an attitude of gratitude. And just remember, our Wellness Warriors are individuals who take charge of their own well-being, embracing a holistic approach to health and happiness. And they realize and recognize that wellness extends beyond mere physical fitness and also includes mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects. You need everything to have that balance. So with that, and knowing that we live in a world where medical errors is the leading cause of death, and I've been telling you to please do your own research. And it's just amazing. I have ideas about each weekly podcast now, over 561 of them. But when it comes time to recording the podcast, you could call it divine inspiration, the Holy Spirit, but something else comes up and I change completely. And today it's about trust the science. An article I read this morning, trust the science, just retracted 11,000 peer-reviewed papers. So that led me to go back to an article from 1988 written by Dr. Richard Murray, who talked about IPPOTA, IPPOTA, which was coined in 1983. It stands for Inverted Pyramidal Proliferation of Theoretical Assumptions. This IPPOTA is far worse, ladies and gentlemen, than any disease that has ever plagued the human race, because it consists of building and proliferation of ludicrous suppositions upon a pointed foundation. And that's what we've seen for the last 4 years. Dr. Science, if he didn't say it wasn't science, well, we've talked about that. Science should have open discussion. But we've learned over the past 4 years that science follows the money. If there's no money in it, there's no science. You will not see many articles about diet and exercise. There's no money to be made by the pharmaceutical companies. I'm going to tell you a few things to watch out for when you hear these terms used in television or the print. Not necessarily denoting dishonesty, but I want you to be alerted that what they're discussing is not factual yet, but theoretical. So if you're hearing or reading an article, be on the alert for findings or phrases such as findings suggest. Well, that doesn't prove anything. Findings indicate. No proof. Findings seem to suggest. Findings theorize. Perhaps might mean. Here's a good one. All evidence points to, but not conclusively. Here's another good one. We can't assume. Well, most people know what ASSUME means. Future studies should verify. Well, not science. At this time, it appears. Well, maybe tomorrow someone will kick in more money and it will appear differently. Many researchers tend to agree. Doesn't prove it. Hypothetically speaking, not proof, ladies and gentlemen, it's quite possible. And there's many more, but another one is in all probability. Unfortunately, many theoretical assumptions have been built up, added to, and augmented, and then presented as scientific fact. And now with AI into the equation, we have this article this morning. Another reminder why we should not blindly trust the science. So let me pull up this article. And 217-year-old Wiley Science publisher has recently peer-reviewed more than 11,000 papers that were determined to be fake, and they didn't even notice it. Why? Because they used AI as part of the problem. And I found out in this article, I knew there was always a follow the money, but who knew that academic journals were a $30 billion industry? And if you are a researcher that does not come up with the right findings, you will not be part of that $30 billion industry. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into everything in this article, but it goes into even the New York Stock Exchange in Australia. And again, we have to demand accountability. And this article admits that the core of the scientific community is corroded and exacerbated, like the ABC Science Unit. Because these entities do not allow open dialogue. Science should be debated in order to come up with the truth. And we saw that all through the Chinese virus epidemic. We saw articles on ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, that were just misbranded. And now the FDA has retracted the ivermectin articles. But you know what? Too late. A lot of people were denied their use. There's other reports. Just to give you an idea of why you cannot trust the science at this time, and that you have to be a wellness warrior. Nearly 25% of medical science papers and 34% of neuroscience papers are bogus. How are you going to follow the science if you're reading bogus papers? A quarter of your scientific papers were either plagiarized or bogus. Isn't that incredible? And you're told to believe the science? And I've told you before, a lot of these come out of the Mideast, and they're paper mills and AI supported. And a lot of these scientists are just use their name. They don't even read the paper where their name is attached to. Wow. I mean, it's disgusting. Fake publications. And boy, you know, there's millions of publications every year. So how are we going to determine whether it's true or not? I don't have an answer, except question it. See if there's a different opinion on the subject. Because it's getting worse. It hasn't stopped. Well, maybe now because this fake science is being brought to the public's attention through podcasts and articles, and maybe somebody will take notice. You know, and then you have one problematic paper, and then it gets cited by other papers. So the misinformation is like a domino effect. And academics are desperate to keep publishing. That's how they keep up their grants and their salaries. And that's why paper mills keep popping up. Paper mills made a fortune. But what harm did they do? How many people did they hurt? So when I and other complementary and alternative medical practitioners talk about energy medicine, how is it ever going to replace the Rockefeller petroleum Flexner medicine? When I talk about biofield therapies, when I talk about energy frequencies, scalar energy, radionics, Reiki, it's hard to get through the masses. When we talk more about physiology than pathology, trying to get to the root cause of diseases, because the science is not there anymore. So I want to, and I have in the past talked to you about applying very low level signals to the body. In fact, in an energy card or in a crystal. It's hard to get traction. Because there's so much fake science and people are demonized for going against the convention. Because the medicine of the future is here now, but it's unlike the conventional medicine, which parcels up the body. Who has a cardiologist, a dermatologist, a nephrologist, a urologist. I mean, different organs, different systems, and that's how they measure a person's health, not by treating the patient as a whole. Again, it's been brought to my attention that good doctors are doctors that order a lot of blood tests. But of course, they're looking at the results, which are results based on a lot of sick people getting tests. They're looking at the average result of a sick person. So they're looking at normal values for sick people, not optimal values. If you're 80 years old, do you want your testosterone level to be, you're told that, no, it's normal for your age. No, you want it to be when you're the same level as when you were 30, not when you're 80. So the evidence of alternative medicine, what we'd like to think about is the complexity of the human biology. And you can't tell a lot about that if you look at all the parts individually. You have to look at the body like an engineer looks at something as a system. But we're getting there. We're getting there. So truth or fake? Well, I think we're going to start seeing the fall of fake science. And I think there are some honest science out there, and that community is starting to fight back. And we'll hear when Brian Peskin has agreed to come on the podcast, an engineer who has really cut through all the fake science on fish oils. And we'll hear from him once we get a date we both can do the podcast. But he dedicated his life to debunking the myths about fish oils. He's the one that told us that fish oils are antifreeze for deep water fish, and they should not be used in pharmacological doses. And it's really been hard for him to combat the fake science, but his results are much better than the fish oils, because the fish oils have never been proven, even with Cochrane collaborations, to be effective. But he keeps working at it. So we're going to go into, when possible, shine a light on methods that are used to manipulate the data. We have to speak out. I can't be afraid of getting canceled on YouTube anymore. Let me just speak out of what we really know and take little victory celebrations. So we'll have a little unmasking of so-called science when I see it out there. So one other thing that came to my attention today is microplastics. All right, so look, the science thing, be a warrior, question everything, ask questions. And now, a couple things that bug me on a daily basis are electromagnetic fields. Nobody pays attention to them. Although I did meet one woman who turns off her her router and the circuit breaker to her bedroom. I mean, she's so far ahead of her time that she sleeps in a electromagnetic free bedroom. Well, somewhat free, because it's everybody else around her, everybody else around my apartment, they don't do it. They think I'm crazy. They think I'm crazy for turning my Wi-Fi off at night, or sleeping under an EMF blanket, or sleeping on a grounding mat. But we have to stay strong, because a lot of bad things are coming this way, especially for the way the pharmaceutical companies and the alphabet agencies are trying to fast track everything they can get onto the market without proper testing. Normally it takes 10 years for a vaccine to be injected into somebody, unlike what we got for the Chinese virus. And it's still experimental. I mean, it's before we go into more scientific stuff, I mean, I did talk to you about the infamous study from Hillsdale College about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So here's another article. The University of California, Los Angeles Medical School is admitting underqualified racial minorities in the interest of diversity, reported in the Washington Free Beacon. A professor there said that while there are, quote, good graduates from UCLA, a third to a half of the medical school is incredibly unqualified. Wow, that's why you have to take care of yourself, especially in the future. You don't know who's qualified and who is not. The Free Beacon reported that the UCLA's ranking has declined and some students are going through medical school without grasping basic knowledge. A professor there said that a student in the operating room could not identify a major artery. They do not know the basic lab tests. And now they're going to be doctors giving a degree and going out into the real world. How many people will die because of misdiagnosis? Well, that's that Elon Musk has come out and said that. So, even if these numbers are not as high as this article points out, it still should not be. It should not. We should not have unqualified physicians. And for years, men have been told not to take testosterone because of perceived challenges. But now, what alternative medical practitioners and complementary practitioners have known for a long time, that it's important to have a testosterone level equal to when you're 30. Well, Annals of Internal Medicine reported that low testosterone, now this wasn't rats or rabbits or whatever, this is in men, can mean a shorter lifespan. 24,000 subjects in 11 different studies. Now that's pretty robust, and I didn't see any of the catchwords in here. The data showed that men with low total testosterone concentration had higher risk for all-cause mortality, and that men with testosterone concentrations that were low had an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And men have been told just the opposite. They've been told that the male menopause was natural, and that the risks of cancer and cardiovascular disease were too great to augment declining testosterone by dabbing the hormone on your skin and replacing it. And of course, the mainstream media jumps on the bandwagon and says and implies that there's something wrong with you if you want to keep your male productive health past a certain age, arbitrary age. So, lifestyle changes. You can't have a lot of articles about it, but we have to eat healthy. Don't eat the cereal with the glyphosate, the Roundup in it. EWG.org can tell you about that. And how about frozen pizzas? Has chemicals in it linked to cancer and changes in your DNA. I think most people occasionally pop one in the microwave for a quick bite to eat. Easy to make. But frozen pizza is frequently made with food chemicals that can harm us. What are they? According to EWG, titanium dioxide, a color additive that can cause DNA damage, found in Celeste pizza, original cheese. Pizza may also contain, as I'm reading this article from EWG, pizza might also contain problematic preservatives. Totino's they mention, pizza rolls, products like bagel bites, pizza snacks contain BHA, a preservative that's been identified as a possible human carcinogen. Potassium bromate, another possible carcinogen, and it goes on and on. Again, a reason to check in every so often to ewg.org. You might give up eating frozen pizza. And this is why it's so important to stay up to date and take care of your own health. Again, this is not what I intended to have a podcast on today, but I'm just looking here. Even the ex-CDC commissioner, director, I should say, said it's about high time we admit that there were significant side effects to the shot. That's why I'm thinking the tide may be changing. The tide might be changing. Maybe there are people out there that really have a conscience. And I told you about Pfizer wanting to sell drugs online. How's that going to work out for you? And should doctors still be paid to give injections to children and adults? Well, that's something you want to ask your doctor. If he recommends a vaccine, what are there options? Are there alternatives? How effective is it? What's in it? What's in that vaccine? Do you know you should not be injected with aluminum? You should not be injected with human or animal cells, especially if they come from aborted babies. Pig blood, horse blood, rabbit brains, dog kidneys, thimerosal, which is mercury, monosodium glutamate. How about neomycin sulfate, an antibiotic in vaccines? How about phenol? How about polysorbate 80 and 20? Cause cancer in animals. How about rubber? There's latex rubber in some vaccines. How about formaldehyde? You want to be embalmed? How about glutaraldehyde? That's poisonous if you ingest it. How about if you get a shot of it? Genetically modified yeast, animal bacteria, viral DNA. How about another antibiotic, just to throw it in, just for the sake of it? A gentamicin sulfate and polymyxin B. Put them together. So you have to ask questions, ladies and gentlemen. You must ask questions. Every time you go and a drug is given to you. And look, please be careful of your cell phones and EMS. Don't keep them near your body. And don't drink out of plastic bottles. Nanoplastics have been linked now to heart attacks and strokes. A nanoplastic is a particle less than 1 micrometer. They're all over. We use a lot of plastic. It's estimated we can consume 3.8 million pieces of micro and nanoplastics a year. And that's just the ones we get from protein sources. Can't be good for you, right? Having plastic in your body, having the estrogenic effects of the plastic. So, we have to be preventative, right? Minimize our use of plastics and plastic packaging. Maybe use some reusable containers. Sweating is a method to get rid of plastics like a sauna. Don't be afraid to sweat outside. Boiling or distilling or reverse osmosis of our water can eliminate nano and microplastics that have infiltrated our water supply. Activated charcoal seems to be able to do the same thing. And of course, you should do a little of everything that you could do to avoid these plastics. I mean, they're finding it in our articles, in our arteries, and in our organs. How about if they find it in our brain? And that pizza that can contain dangerous chemicals. How about if you consider that it might also come with a side of plastic? Because plastics are making it into our food supply. They remember they can cause hormone problems. They can cause inflammation. They can stress organs. Now, let me go back a second. They have found these microplastics in humans, but a lot of research has been done in animals. So is it directly transferable? We don't know for sure yet. But one thing we do know for sure is we can eliminate them as much as possible from our environment and our diet. Especially for us down here in Florida, because sunlight and water can break down the plastics, make them microscopic in size. And these tiny plastic fragments, believe it or not, because they're less than a micrometer, they can travel through the water and air. And we're still producing a lot of plastics. So a lot of it is unavoidable. That's why we have to be a little bit more proactive and boil our water, reverse osmosis, charcoal filters, and sweating. And these tiny particles not only contain estrogenic chemicals, they can contain flame retardants. And, a little bit that won't hurt you, right? But how about over time? Will they be accumulating in our organs? And will we have long-term health consequences? Well, we don't know the answer to that right now, but there's a possibility and a strong possibility that that's what's going to happen, that they'll get into our cells and become part of us. They do it in animals. They do it especially in mice. So we have enough problem keeping our brain active as we get older. Now, do we want our brain to battle against microplastics? That blood-brain barrier is getting penetrated every day. Remember, when you put a cell phone up to your ear, you're opening that blood-brain barrier and letting all kinds of toxins get into your brain. And the studies on mice, I could tell you, are frightening to read. And again, I have to go back, though. It's not humans yet, but we do have an option not to reduce our microplastics in our lives, to use stainless steel water bottles. Don't grab your coffee in a paper cup. Bring your own reusable mug. Okay? So just something to keep you in the know so that you can be a healthy wellness warrior. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dr. Ron. I have confirmation from Dr. Wong, Mr. Portney, and Brian Peskin, that they will come on the show. We'll try and get them scheduled as soon as possible, and we'll be talking about with Dr. Wong and Micah Portney about zeolite and zymescence, and we'll probably get into detox. And then with Mr. Peskin, I've asked him, since he has studied this field so intensely, to give us a primer or a primer on fish oils, because there is a lot of misinformation out there by the press, by the pharmaceutical companies, and their surrogates. They do not really understand omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids very well. And when they recommend them to their clients, they're recommending doses in the pharmacological range. Much too much for the body to handle, where Mr. Peskin recommends a parent essential oil from flaxseed and so forth, and let your body make what it needs on its own. A much more physiological approach, not a pharmacological approach. So I'll try and get that one of those two podcasts, one with Peskin and one with Wong, scheduled for next week. You'll just have to see what comes up on your Podbean app. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a great week. God bless, and we'll see you later.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. So if you have a pain, call the doctor. If you have a strain, call the doctor. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. See you next week.